Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Have you ever found yourself, caught up in those classic romantic narratives, the ones where, like, someday our prince will come and true love just kind of sweeps you off your feet, promises to rescue you from everything? It's a really powerful story, isn't it? Something our culture seems to feed us from day one, really shapes how we think about relationships. So today, we're diving into some really fascinating insights. They come from a book chapter that, well, it doesn't just challenge these ideas, it tries to redefine them. It gets right to the heart of what we actually want or think we want from love and relationships. Urges us to look past the fantasy.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, is how this common idea of romantic love, the one where you just fall into it, like it's gravity or something, no choice involved, how that can be, well, actually quite destructive. Toni Morrison pointed this out, didn't she? That this whole illusion, this lore, it gets in the way of us learning how to genuinely love. And the sources, they really show how this idea of like an effortless, perfect union, it just sets you up for disappointment. I mean, think about it. If you go in presenting a kind of false self, the perfect version, and then the love you find based on that doesn't stick, well, when the real you comes out, it just confirms that old feeling of being maybe unworthy. It's a cycle.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive, then, is to really explore that difference, the gap between just looking for a partner, any partner sometimes, and truly knowing love. We're going to look at some powerful arguments. Thinkers like Erich Fromm and Scott Peck, they see love very differently. Not just a feeling, but an act of will, a decision, even a promise. And we'll unpack how choosing to love, with real intention and responsibility might actually make romance more intense, not less.
Yeah.
How it could lead to deeper satisfaction everywhere, even in, say, sexual intimacy.
Exactly. And building on that, the source material really digs into why we cling to falling in love. It suggests it's often a way to kind of dodge responsibility. Thomas Merton saw it as this mixture of fear, awe, fascination, and confusion, like there's suspicion mixed in there, something you can't avoid but maybe can't fully trust either. It's almost like if you're not sure how you really feel, it's easier to just fall than to consciously choose, right?
That's such a key distinction, isn't it? We're kind of conditioned to believe we're just passive recipients, swept away, no agency. But Erich Fromm, you mentioned him in The Art of Loving. He frames love as an action. He says, to love somebody is not just a strong feeling, it is a decision, it is a judgment, it is a promise. He argues, if love were only a feeling, how could you promise to love forever? Feelings come and go.
And M. Scott Peck really hammers this home. He talks about love as the will to nurture one's own or another's spiritual growth. And by spiritual growth, he basically means moving towards, greater self-understanding, wisdom, real connection. He's very clear. The desire to love is not itself love. Love is as love does.
Wow.
He says love is an act of will, namely both in intention and action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love. We choose to love. And yet, despite how profound that sounds, it's fascinating how resistant people often are to actually embracing that idea, choosing love.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, why is that? Why the resistance? Is it just like the comfort of the old story? Or is there something genuinely scary about the idea of choosing love? And it's fascinating, too, how differently we seem to approach finding a partner versus finding love. Harriet Lerner, the therapist, she points this out. Most people say they want someone mature, loyal, trustworthy, loving, attentive, the whole list. But then, she says, and this is quite pointed, few of us evaluate a prospective partner with the same objectivity and clarity that we might use to select a household appliance or a car. Ouch. It's almost like just having a partner becomes a goal rather than building actual love.
And maybe, as the sources hint, that reluctance to evaluate properly comes from something deeper, a really primal fear, maybe, the fear of being alone. We worry, perhaps, that if we get really critical, really choosy about our needs, we might find nobody measures up, or nobody's out there for us, so maybe we settle. Settle for someone who isn't quite right, rather than face being alone. And that fear, it can really block us from seeking something deeper, more intentional.
And what's so counterintuitive but really interesting in the material is this common fear that if you approach love with intention, with conscious will, that somehow kills the romance, spoils the magic. But the sources argue the complete opposite. They suggest that starting from a place of care, knowledge, respect, that actually intensifies the romance. Because if you take the time to communicate honestly, you're not trapped by all that fear and anxiety that often bubbles under the surface when there's no shared intent.
Yeah, and this comes through really clearly when they talk about sexual pleasure, which is, pretty intimate stuff. There's this powerful story in the sources about a woman. She'd always been anxious about sex, stemming from childhood shame. Her therapist advised her to talk openly with her new partner over lunch, no less about pleasure, likes, dislikes, fears, hopes. And she reported back that the lunch itself, just the conversation, was incredibly erotic. It wasn't just about the information exchanged. It was the act of being open, honest, truly seen. That built a foundation for ease and satisfaction later that she'd never known. It deepened the connection.
That's a fantastic example. Communication deepening romance, not killing it. The material also draws a really clear line between just, erotic attraction and actual love. Exciting sex can happen between strangers, right? That doesn't automatically mean love is present. And the sources note how many men, culturally speaking, are sort of socialized to be led primarily by that erotic impulse, sometimes ignoring shared values or interests, almost using sexual performance to mask an underlying lack of real connection, or lovelessness, as they put it.
Right. And while women certainly value sexual pleasure, they often seem socialized to see it as one part of a bigger picture. They might prioritize emotional connection, intimacy alongside it. The source even makes this provocative claim. If men were socialized to desire love as much as they're taught to desire sex, imagine the cultural shift. It really pushes back hard against that old idea that too much talk kills the mood. It suggests knowing more about each other can be the very thing that fuels deeper excitement.
So, okay, if we buy into this idea love is a choice, how do we start thinking differently or talking differently? The sources suggest a shift in language could be powerful. Like, instead of saying, I think I'm in love, maybe saying something like, I've connected with someone in a way that makes me think I'm on the path to knowing love. It's more active. Or instead of the passive, I am in love, using I am loving or I will love. Changing our words, as we often talk about, can literally change how we think and act.
Exactly. And that shift helps us move past what the sources call perfect passion towards perfect love. Perfect passion is that initial intense rush. You meet someone, they seem like everything you ever dreamed of. You're kind of blinded. You only see what you want to see. And while that's fun, it has its pleasures. The sources frame it as just a preliminary stage, surface level.
And it only becomes perfect love, supposedly, when that initial intensity gives you the courage to face reality, to embrace your real self and theirs, warts and all. And this is where true love comes in, not as a fairy tale ending, but as something requiring real work. The poet Rilke had that line, didn't he? There's nothing happier than work, and love, just because it is the extreme happiness, can be nothing else but work. It's an investment, a commitment, active engagement.
And that kind of true love, it's not about dodging difficulty or finding some easy, happily ever after. Actually, it seems to thrive on challenge. Its whole basis is about growth, expansion, becoming more fully ourselves, which is why when we encounter it, it can sometimes feel threatening because it shines a light on parts of ourselves we might prefer to keep hidden. It pushes us to evolve.
The sources make another great distinction, too, between a heart connection and a soul connection. A heart connection is that more familiar thing, attraction to someone's style, looks, ideas. It's important, but maybe more surface. But a soul connection, as John Welwood describes it, that's deeper. A mutual recognition of each other's essential beauty, that core self behind the masks. It's seen almost as a sacred alliance. Its purpose, to help both people realize their deepest potentials, seeing not just who they are, but who they could become with that mutual support.
Right. And that kind of deep soul connection, it isn't always smooth sailing. It can be frightening because there's, as they say, no place to hide. You're truly seen. And this is where Eric Butterworth's definition of true love is so helpful. He calls it a peculiar kind of insight through which we see the wholeness which the person is, at the same time totally accepting the level on which he now expresses himself without any delusion that the potential is a present reality. And then he adds the crucial part. It's a sincere and unwavering commitment to help him to achieve his goals of self-unfoldment, helping them become their best self, even if you see that potential before they fully do.
So it's not just passive acceptance. It's this mutual commitment to being changed by the relationship, by the beloved, to becoming more fully self-actualized, reaching your potential, becoming your most authentic self. And that commitment to change, it has to be chosen, mutually agreed upon. And, we often hear true love called unconditional, but the sources clarify. For it to really work, it needs that ongoing commitment to constructive struggle, to change. It's active, not passive.
Absolutely. And that struggle, it's grounded in being willing to reflect on yourself, your actions, and then process that, communicate it with your partner. Welwood puts it nicely. Two beings who have a soul connection want to engage in a full, free-ranging dialogue and commune with each other as deeply as possible. Honesty, openness, that's the bedrock, even though Yeah, it feels incredibly risky sometimes to show your full self. But the experience of true love, the sources argue, is what actually gives you the courage to take that risk.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting as we wrap up. We've journeyed from that maybe sweet illusion of just falling in love to this profound reality that love is an active choice. It's a will to nurture.
Mm.
And often, yeah, it's a lot of work, challenging work, but rewarding work. We've seen how crucial it is to tell the difference between just erotic attraction and genuine love,
Yeah.
or between that fleeting, perfect passion and a more transformative, perfect love. That's key for building connections that last and truly satisfy.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, what the source material is really saying is that true love isn't about avoiding bumps in the road or finding some easy fairy tale. Instead, it actually thrives on challenge. It demands mutual recognition, two people really seeing each other fully, with no place to hide, embracing who they are now and who they could become. Remember, Rilke, love, just because it is the extreme happiness, can be nothing else but work. And Butterworth's idea, total acceptance of the present, yes, but also that sincere commitment to help each other unfold. So this unconditional true love, it really demands an ongoing dedication to constructive struggle, to change. It means being willing to look inward, reflect, feel things, and then communicate honestly. That gives us the guts to be fully vulnerable, fully revealed. And the transformative power of this kind of love, Thomas Merton called it a personal revolution, something that welds your ideas, your desires, your actions into a whole new you.
And that really feels like the core takeaway here, doesn't it? Love within a real romantic bond. It's not about getting swept away into a fantasy. It's about courageously letting that deep, mysterious connection call you back to who you truly are. It's about giving and receiving a love that empowers both people to be utterly changed, transformed.
Which leaves us with a pretty important question for you listening right now. If true love really is this journey of profound personal transformation, if it requires sacrificing old versions of yourself, surrendering to becoming someone new, what fears, what assumptions might you need to let go of to truly embrace a love that is, as these sources powerfully put it, stronger than death? A love so fundamental, so transformative, it shapes the very core of your being. Something to think about.